Okay, so we will start with new module, which is module 4, and again it's a very theoretical module. It's not too mathematical, but it is very important because a lot of questions will come from this module. So the name of the module is around ethics and around responsible use of AI. And as we proceed in this chapter, we will talk about some of the moral obligations or the moralities with respect to the use of AI. And it is becoming very important and relevant in today's world, especially when a lot of information and misinformation is getting spread, not just by the wrong elements, but sometimes by the not so wrong elements as well. So there are a couple of things that we will talk about in this module. So first and foremost is that there are multiple approaches for ethics. So what Garp says is that we need to take the practical approach. So it's called the practical ethical approach, and this is something that AI needs to take because practical ethics is more it has the focus on applied, it has applied focus. Then, and because we are talking about applications of AI to solve use cases that will touch human lives, etc., and it is also multidisciplinary. So this practical ethics is not just a computational science or a mathematical science. It has also it takes some of this some of its essence from philosophy, sociology, etc. So that makes it multidisciplinary. Hence it is more complete. Then it is also sensitive of the context. Okay, so when I say context, it means that when you apply a practical approach, there are no universal rules. So as we said, that something that might be not so good in the, say, Western concept or Western ethics, whether it is North America or Europe or rest of the world or even Middle East, may become ethical somewhere else. For example, we always talk about, in the Indian context, we talk about non-violence and vegetarianism, etc. But if you go to Middle East, etc., where there is no vegetation, so you cannot say that vegetarianism is equivalent to non-violence. Okay, so there is it has context that it becomes sensitive to, and it is also more pluralistic. Okay, so it has this pluralistic approach, which means that there is no one universal theory of ethics. There are moral theories of consequentialism, deontology, virtues, and we'll go deep dive on each of these theories in today's session. But there is a pluralistic approach, and we need to find out which approach is most suitable for your particular scenario or context or geography, etc. So that's on the practical ethics. And then the second reading is that all the enterprises, who deals with the use of AI or data or both, why should they worry so much about ethics? Because it may not impact their business directly. Their revenue or their cost of the company might not go up and down by the use of by adoption of some kind of a ethical framework. But why should they consider it? Why should they consider ethics in the first place when they are designing their overall AI strategy, etc. So first and foremost is the trust and the reputation, okay, in the brand itself. So if there is a particular brand that you trust, and that they are not going to use your data or any other information that they have about you for wrong purpose, then more and more people will get associated with that particular enterprise. It can also avoid scandals. Okay, so if there is a clear moral policy or a ethical policy in an organization, every employee of that organization will know that what is right or ethical or moral that can be done and that cannot be done, even when technically, technologically it might be possible, or but it is, if it is morally wrong and there is a clear policy, those scandals can be avoided. Then it can also help with respect to talent retention. So there are companies that don't pay you so much, but if it has a clear value system and if it has a clear moral policy, then people will become more happier working with you, and that's also helps to strengthen culture. Okay, so all the collaboration and people coming together to work on something that helps humanity as a whole, not just make money for the company. And it helps in the overall risk management as well, because if you become, we spoke about risk management in the earlier readings, and about some of the kinds of risks that can arise because of AI. So if you have a moral policy in place, some of those risks can also be managed, because you'll have some kind of guidelines, some kind of standard operating procedures of what should be done, what should not be done. And I think it can also help to inculcate innovation, and as well as it can also help in kind of a long-term plans, okay, long-term thinking or long-term strategies, not just in immediate short-term goals and strategies. So that is basically, that is the reason that why enterprises should adopt some of these moral frameworks or ethical frameworks. I think now we will talk about these theories, okay, theories or ethical theories. There are three theories. You should carefully understand these three theories. While these theories are not mutually exclusive, so if, let's suppose, this is theory 1, this is theory 2, and this is theory 3, there can be few places where these theories intersect with each other, they conflict with each other. There will be times when they will probably agree with each other. Anyways, and there will be in GARP, the kind of questions that they will ask you is that they'll give you a scenario and say that in this particular scenario, if you use theory 1 or theory 2 or theory 3, I'll talk about these theories individually and name them, etc. But how will what is going to be your response? And then they'll give you 4 options to choose from. The first theory is called as consequentialism. Okay, so this word, it already contains the word consequences, or that's the root word where it is derived from. So this is more capitalistic form of kind of a ethical theory, and this is more mathematical, more easy to interpret, more easy to apply, and it is also sometimes called as a utilitarian theory, which is derived from the word utility. So what it means is that whenever you are at some point, in some state, and you have multiple options. Let's suppose you can go to state 1 or you can go to state 2. So how do you decide which one to choose? You find out the utility of each state, and the utility means that the the overall you can call it pleasure or happiness or overall goodness of your population. Okay, so if the overall goodness of your population, and let's suppose this is utility 1, this is utility 2, if the overall goodness of your population and the calculation of this goodness function can be so you can say that my goodness is a function of, it can be mathematical function, multiple parameters, so and so on and so forth. So if you say that maybe the goodness is the overall uh, uh, credit value or the financial value of my customers, or the clients that I work with, or anything else. So you can decide your goodness function, and based on the overall utility of your state 1 and state 2, you can decide which path to choose when you get into a kind of a cusp where you have to decide which path you need to take. Okay, so that talks about the theory of consequentialism, and while this theory is easy to adopt, easy to understand, and sounds good, but let me give you a scenario where there is a doctor, and the doctor has 5 patients. Okay, and these 5 patients, let's suppose there is one of them is blind, one of them has some kind of a heart issue, there is another one which has some kind of a kidney problem, and there is another one that has some kind of a liver disease, and the 5th one, let's say that he has some kind of what is left, hearing problem. Okay, now he has these 5 patients to treat, and then he picks up one random person, walking on the corridor, a healthy individual coming to an hospital just for a general checkup, who is all good, and he kills this person, and uses his eyes for this guy, uses his heart for this guy, and kidney for this guy, etc., etc. So in terms of the utility function, if you'll see, 5 out of 6 people are going to get benefited if this kind of a transaction is done. This is kind of a hypothetical scenario, and GARP reading also talks about the same hypothetical scenario, but it says that in the situation like this, while this theory says that yes, go ahead, you should do this, because it is the consequences of doing this is going to benefit, or going to give the goodness value of the consequences is going to impact the majority, people are going to become happier. So that's the case. But then the defense on this theory is that when you calculate goodness, you also say that while I'm doing this goodness thing, and let's suppose this was your earlier function, you multiply this with some some kind of a legal, some kind of other kind of regulatory thing. So you are saying that if the event that I am going to consider, if that is not legal, so like murder of a person or anything else, whether it is robbery or anything else, so if it is not so legal, I multiply this by whatever is the goodness, and if it is not as per the regulations or law of the land, then even if this is a high function, it becomes 0. So those kinds of adaptations might be done to the consequentialist approach in order to apply it. Okay, but that's the hard and fast, that you look at the consequences of doing an action, and if the consequences of doing an action is helping or is increasing the goodness of the majority of people, then you still go ahead and do it. The second theory is called as deontology theory. I don't know if you have already heard about the word ontology, but it is used very, very frequently in NLP and in a lot of sciences, where you create an ontology. So ontology is nothing but a set of rules. Okay, so you create a set of rules, and then you always refer to those rules. Okay, you refer to those rules to take a particular decision. Now in case of deontology theory, I have not spoken about who has given the first theory or who has given the second theory, you can read about that from Garp material. But since the exam checks your conceptual concepts and not your cramming or your other things, it is very unlikely that they are going to ask when was this theory formed or who had formed this theory. So I'm skipping that portion. But deontology theory is gives you a set of rules, and it says that whenever you are in doubt, you go and look at these inventory of rules, and if you are sure that you are following these and rules, then you go ahead and do it. What can these rules be? Let's suppose your first rule is that you should never lie. Okay, then you can have second rule as you should abide law. So there can be n number of rules, and you go to these rules and you make sure that the rules are applied. And but the problem with this rule sometimes is that since most of these things are like 0 or 1, and sometimes you may have to you may have to take some decisions which can positively impact say 99% people, even though it may have some kind of consequences or the remaining 1%, so in the greater benefit. So maybe the rule will never allow you to do that. But anyway, that's the deontology theory. And the third theory is called the virtue ethics. Okay, so this is probably the oldest theory in the mankind, and it has been adopted from the teachings of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, and it says that we should live a life which are guided by virtues. Sometimes the virtues and the rules might overlap with each other, sometimes they may not overlap with each other. As I said, that non-violence can be one virtue, but then it is not universal, and then how you measure non-violence can also become a kind of a debatable topic. Anyways, so it says that when you decide that what kind of virtues I should adapt or what kind of a person I should be, you always you look at, like they talk about Jesus, it talks about Muhammad, or it talks about say Gandhi, or it talks about Solomon, that you imagine if these people had to take a decision in this particular circumstance or in this particular situation, then what would they do, how would they react, what would be their decisions. Okay, so instead of creating a duty based decision, which is deontology, this says that you do you apply a virtue based decisions. Okay, and this is how you can resolve the conflict, and this is generally, if you look at it, the way kids are when your kids learn good and bad things, they learn it from their immediate parents, immediate teachers, and etc., and or even the religion that they follow. It all talks about virtues to them. It doesn't say that that in a particular situation you should take this rule book and apply it. It abstracts some kinds of best practices, some kinds of overall overall value to the mankind, or things like non-violence, things about trustworthiness, and all of those kinds of things. So this is something which is called as the virtue ethics. So these three principles, which are consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics, are easy to understand, but anybody can get confused on because there are very thin lines, especially between the second one and the third one. So what Garp would do probably is it is going to give you a situation that, okay, this is a situation, and if you apply consequentialist approach here, what is going to be your decision. So we have always heard about that problem or that kind of a situation or question that somebody asks us, that okay, there is a train track and it has this kind of a detour here, and let's suppose this train is coming and this train is going to go like this. Okay, so that's the scheduled path. But then there are, let's suppose, 100 people here. Okay, and there are, let's suppose, one or two people here. Okay, then let's suppose like two people here, and I have the control of this switch. Okay, now if I have the control over this switch, if I just look at the consequentialist approach, I will move the train to this side, and let these two people die, because 100 is a much more bigger number than 2. If I look at the rules based approach, I will say no, let it go straight, because these people were not following the rules of the traffic or the law, and these two people are law abiding citizens, they were following the rules, so they should be done. Virtue ethics depends upon where in the world you are, and depending upon how you look at things, you can take these kinds of decisions. But anyways, the questions are not going to be as complex as this one. Maybe they'll say that in case of a consequentialist approach, what would you do? But this is what it is. Okay. The next reading is about it talks about a little bit about medical ethics. Okay, and says that, see, medical ethics is very, very old. Medical ethics has been in place from, say, informally it has been in place since, say, 2000 plus years, but even formally, legally, and regulation wise, it has been in place for more than 100 years. And there is a lot of learning that we can take from medical ethics when we create these AI ethics. Okay, so that's why it is important to know a little bit about medical ethics, and it talks about some dates. Again, you don't need to remember the dates, that in so and so year this was adopted, etc., etc. But whenever and if you talk to some of your friends who are doctors, they take this oath also, Hippocratic oath or something, where they say that whatever decision that they are going to do, whether it is the diagnosis or the treatment, they are going to treat the overall well-being of their patient more than anything else. Okay, there are, in today's world, the transplantation of organs is, as a science, it is very, very matured. So it is very much possible that one healthy individual can transplant his or her organ to somebody else. But then if this was so straightforward, and if there was no medical ethics, then all the rich people would have already taken over, by using the power of capital or power of money, they could have lived much more longer. But since there are medical ethics in place, and those medical ethics help to create laws, helps to create some kind of regulations, and because of which you can only take organs from people who are dead, or probably people who are in some kind of a strong coma, or people who are like brain dead at least. So there are laws now, but these laws come from medical ethics, which says that the patient well-being is important. There are since healthcare is very, very primary to every individual, everybody wants to live longer, everybody wants to live healthy. So it also, the decision of keeping most of your medical institutes or hospitals and those kinds of things under the government control is another decision that came from medical ethics. Otherwise, as a business, there are countries in the world where there is less intervention of the government on medical. There are countries where there is more intervention of government on the medical. But again, you will see some kind of a correlation that in say some northern European countries like say Norway, Finland, Sweden, most or even Canada, most of your medical is covered by the government. But in more capitalistic countries like US, like India, you will see a lot of private players, and where the medical ethics sometimes gets diluted. So medical ethics has been in place from a very, very long time, and because it has been in place from a very, very long time, that's the reason that there is a lot we can learn from medical ethics, because AI ethics is just very, very nascent. I think I'll take a pause here, and in the next video we can talk about principles of AI ethics, and maybe I'll create one more video to talk about some of the other ethical things. So 3 videos it should be for module 4. Thank you.